Jay, what you know about Bigfoot snatching up hotties up in northwest Canada there, man, back in the day, eh? Hoser?
Uh, I've heard that there's a lot of disappearances up in the like northwest corner of Canada,
North
especially Indigenous women, right?
Indigenous women. Fun fact, it happens a lot, or it did back in the day, to the point where that it was, as we'll get into it. Before we do that, you guys,
Oh yeah, we got to do the thing, man.
welcome
Got
to
to do the
Enigma
thing.
Cast. Welcome to
We
Enigma
love
Cast.
you. Thank you for viewing.
Big hearts. New swag
You are
on.
the reason we do this.
You're the
That's
reason
kind
we
of
do
silly.
it. Now do us a favor, hit the subscribe button. Also, too, hit the thumbs up. Also, too, they're telling me to say it's at the beginning, so I'm trying to be more fluid. It still sounds rehearsed. But fun fact
We're
is we're
getting
on
it.
Spotify now. Hit the link on
Yeah,
our profile page, and it'll take you to our link tree, and you'll be able to see it.
yeah, that's pretty cool.
All right, now we're getting down to
So,
business. All right, so everybody, so what we're talking about tonight, y'all, tonight's episode, we're going to talk about, it's called the Seraphine Long abduction story. Happened back in 1871, all right, in British Columbia, Canada, northwest part of the United States of America along the Washington border. Very, very, very remote, very place, very beautiful, and is a hot spot, hotbed of fiduciary type activity with the Bigfoots and the Sasquatches. However,
I'm
I have my own theory on something here. I have my own theory.
okay.
I'm going to put this out now as we get into it. Remember we did an episode way back in the day, Jay, talking about the 10 or 11 different types of Bigfoots, and we only went over like the
Yeah,
first three, but they classified
yeah.
them.
We just brushed over it, but
We
we were
brushed up.
talking. There's a lot.
Right, a
Yeah,
lot, right?
I was like a little shocked at the
Yeah,
variety.
yeah, me too. And I did a YouTube short a couple of weeks ago talking about a picture that somebody took of one of the Bigfoots up there that looks kind of like a man, right?
Mhm.
I think that's what this was, and I'll go over the reasons why
Okay.
as when we get into it, and I also when we get into it, I also can tie this back, man, to the Book of Giants, man, to the fiduciary that was going on back in the day, right? And
Yeah.
how that warmed up.
Who knows how much of that is still lurking?
Yeah,
Right.
well, and I even brought the receipts because we've been getting some heat, man. And another thing too.
Oh, we can be
Well, so the thing is
okay.
that people like to email me. Hey, I'm going to stop responding to emails. If you got something to say it in the comments. All right, so everybody can see it, right? Because I'm not going to sit and
Right.
email you
Let's
back or
have an
whatever.
open discussion. Yeah, no. Let's have an open
Yeah,
discussion so we can all
exactly.
kind of like join in because I don't see his emails,
Yeah, exactly. And I
and I
don't.
would love to chime in on some of this
Yeah,
stuff. Sure,
exactly. So I know
absolutely.
everybody wants to talk about shoot it down, but no one wants to shoot it down in public. No, we're in public, open forum. If you got something to say, take a shot at it, and we'll talk it out. But anyways, so here we go. This story is amazing. I've actually wanted to do this story for a while, Jay, and this is one of the stories that I came across. I was actually driving, and it was like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was coming back from Shenandoah National Forest, Blue Ridge Parkway, and so I thought it would be cool on these cutbacks to put on a semi, themey story, right? I got my heat with me, you know what I'm saying? So I'm alone, but I got my heat. I got my heat on my passenger side over there, so I'm not too
So you're
scared.
in there listening to Deliverance, the unabridged version
Yeah,
on book on tape, and you're weaving through the West Virginia forests. Yeah, no, nothing bad
switchbacks.
could happen from that at all.
So and this story came through the shuffle, right? And I was like, and there's a lot of things in this story, in my opinion, in
Uh-huh.
my not humble at all opinion, that make it believable. That make it believable, all right? And I'm gonna go over it. So let's lay the framework, Jay. Let's lay the framework, all right?
Yeah, let's do it.
1871, 17-year-old girl, woman. Back then, in 1871, at 14, you were considered a woman. We don't do that
Yeah.
anymore. So that's just
Well, because yeah, I mean it was 1871, dude. They
1871. She was a
good luck at
woman.
making it
You get married at 14 back in
40.
1871. She was
Yeah.
17 years old. Her name is Seraphine was obviously her name is Seraphine. Her name was Seraphine Long. She was a Canadian Native American, but they call them First Nation up in Canada. I want to make sure I get this right, right? So she was First
Right.
Nation in Canada, right? And her reservation was near the Harrison Lake, British Columbia, in British Columbia. Harrison Lake in British Columbia, Canada is where this took place, right? Okay. Now, that's the scene. Now, what happened about this story is that several years later after this story, she had a teacher on her reservation. And she told this story to her teacher. And the teacher's name was J.W. Burns, right? That was the name of her teacher. And she was on I'm going to mess this up, man. The Chehalis,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah, Chehalis First Nations Band Reservation is where she was at, right? J.W. Burns was there. If that name sounds familiar, J.W. Burns is considered to be one of the OGs of the Sasquatch investigation area. In fact, there is a rumor. I wasn't able to substantiate this, and this is a bold claim, Cotton. This is a bold claim that he was the one that coined the term Sasquatch. And I'm like, huh? What? I don't know about that now. That's a bold claim, sir. And I couldn't find. It sounded a little bit of fluffy in there, right?
Suspect.
Suspect, a little suspect, right?
Yeah, right.
But however, he kept several very detailed logs, short stories and events, not only from this tribe, but any other tribe that was in the area that had these type of stories. He would document them, research them, send them off to UC Berkeley, believe it or not. UC Berkeley down there in California. He would send it down there, and they would correspond. And UC Berkeley actually sent expeditions to this place, to a specific mountain called Mount Moores or something like that. I think it's down here, to try to investigate these things. And the First Nation scouts refused to escort them. They were like, no. And again, the Ancient Enigma files, how not to get yourself murdered in the woods, is ignore Native Americans at your own risk. If they tell you, stay off Mount what,
the
Jay?
Indigenous people, they have no idea what's going on in the woods around them.
Right.
None at all.
If they say, hey, do whatever you want.
They've just lived there for thousands of years or anything like
survived
that.
With no electricity.
And done well, thrived.
Yeah, thrived, raised babies, right? And when they tell you to stay off Mount Death, and you choose to go,
probably do it.
And you choose to go to Mount Death.
Probably a good idea.
Don't be surprised if you find out why they call it Mount Death. Anyways,
or at least go ask some more questions, right? Like, hey, that roughly translates to Mount Death. Why? How do you call it Mount? Well, that's because where people die, they go up there and they die.
People die, they never come back. Strange mist, strange lights, strange sounds, and they're never seen again.
Explosions, fire in the sky. Yeah, no, I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah, but if you just make a left and go around to Mount, Lollipops, you're good. Just walk around Mount Lollipop.
I'll follow. Yep, that's good directions. I'm going that way, sir.
So the UC Berkeley kept sending these expeditions up there, but then they were offering these guys $10 a day, and that was big money back in 1871, right? $10 a day, right? To just escort them. They're like, we're good, man. This is doomed to failure. And so the white boys would go out into the woods, come back 3 weeks later, half dead, starved to death, emancipated. And they're like, yeah, you were right. And their guys were like, yeah, bro, yeah, gringo, like, yeah, I told you, don't go to Mount Death. Anyways. So, never heard a story like this before. Have you, Jay?
No, never.
You don't really get down in Central America, and I gotta put this out here for you people with gender studies degrees. The Americas run from Argentina all the way to Canada. It's North America, Central America, South America. It's not just America.
Believe it or not, it almost touches Antarctica.
Almost.
Top
to bottom.
Pretty long. Yeah, it's huge.
You don't ever hear. I've never heard any Bigfoot or Sasquatch stories happening in South America. They have other things down there as well. Central America, especially
That's because all the jaguars and snakes and crap in the jungle already killed the Sasquatches.
yeah. So yeah,
That's
exactly.
not a
Yeah,
friendly environment for that type of creature.
and no caves. Not a lot of caves, man.
There's not a lot of apes down there either.
Yeah, exactly.
Big apes, right?
And
It's
so
just not
Central America,
possible.
yeah, Central America, you hear a lot of Sasquatch stories, but you don't hear a lot of abduction stories, right? In Canada, that's their thing. I take that back. Mount Shasta in California, there's some pretty good abduction stories out there. Mount Shasta's
That
it's that thing's it's
Yeah,
that's
there's a lot of stories about Mount Shasta. I've just started to brush the surface of some of that
yeah,
stuff. I've been doing some research on that, but
yeah.
I got to get deeper into it.
Yeah, for sure. So anyways, let's dig into this, brother. Are you ready?
Hmm.
We've been talking a lot of science and technical mumbo jumbo, and I've been proving
Yeah.
how useless theoretical physicists are, how philosophy is trash, how Einstein was wrong, and how Tesla is the goat. So I figured today, you know what?
Well,
You know
and
what?
so there's so many things there to unpack,
You know
but
what?
you've got me like on 3 or 4 of those. I don't even know
The
how
only
many you've
physicist
named
that
up.
matters, the Green Lantern.
The Green Lantern. He was a pilot, sir.
Oh, he's a
Depending on
pilot.
which
My bad.
one we're talking about,
My
or the
bad.
cop. I
My
don't
bad.
know.
He was
One of
a
them was a cop in Baltimore, believe it or not.
right.
Guy Gardner. He
So,
was a Baltimore cop.
get you
Nobody
nerd.
should give that guy.
Close.
Nobody should give that guy a ring.
You're mint, bro. You're mint.
Yeah, no, I'm a huge comic book nerd. I'm unapologetic about it.
So, yeah, let's get
Mhm.
into it.
Let's do it.
So, 1871, Seraphine Long, 17 years old, considered a woman, was walking back from gathering. She was a hunter-gatherer civilization on the reservation. Simple life. No TV, no newspaper, no telephones, no internet, no carrier pigeons. Word of mouth was how things got done. She was supposed to get married to this guy who had a pretty cool name. I think it was called Joseph Thunderbolt or something like that, right? It's pretty awesome name, right? She was walking back to, I don't know, would you call it a village? Or what would you
Yeah,
call it? Like
call
a
it
village.
village.
Call it a village, man. She was walking back to her village thinking about her future husband, right? A brave. All of a sudden, man, a big ass paw shoots out of the bushes and easily just picks her up. Easily picks her up, right? Holds her down with one hand, and he rubs like this type of, she said it was some type of like tree gum on her eyes, right? Like some type of sap, right? To hold her eyes down, right? He rubs it down.
Mhm.
And he rubbed tree gum. I don't know what tree gum is. I guess it's some type of sap, right?
All right. You've been in the South, man. You know the pine trees and the pine tar.
Oh, yeah,
It's pine tar.
Okay, all right. So pine tar, right? So we call it pine tar in the South, right? So tree gum on her face, man. Holds it down. Picks her up. Guess what, baby? It's you and me. And he takes off. He takes off running through the bushes, right? And here's where things for me, I start to believe her story, right?
Mhm.
Because if you've ever been we've talked about this before, being in the military. If you've ever been in a traumatic situation in the military, I actually heard a guy talking about this today on a podcast. You remember the dumbest stuff, right? Like the dumbest things
For sure.
possible, right? It's like all heck could be going off around you, and you're like, man, he's wearing white socks. It's like that type of stuff will come in your head, right? Like that. So she's telling him that this guy, she didn't call him a Sasquatch. She said, a wild man took me. 7 feet tall, big and hairy. Easily had her and was running, right? She said he was traversing at a high pace, going through bushes, running for a great distance. And she said, I'm quoting now, she said, I could not help but admire how strong and fast and how easily he was breathing, right? And that detail right there means like, wow, like this, like that's
right.
Very specific to say, right? Most people would be terrified.
Yeah, because that's an outlier, right?
Yeah.
Like, she noticed he wasn't panting when he was running.
Yeah. This dude was in shape, man. So
That's
like,
interesting.
she said he was very, very strong, very agile, and she could not. And she said specifically, I could not help but admire how easily he was breathing. Wasn't even winded carrying her, right? And so they're running. He's running. He's clearing massive distance or whatever. And he comes to this river, right? And I guess this is a pretty serious river, right? Not for the weak.
Mm-hmm.
Not for him.
Not like a stream or a creek. This is a river.
A river.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, like there's a current on there, right? He hits this river, no problem, right? Goes into a full swim. He lets her go because she has no choice but to hold on or get pulled away. So she holds on. So she's holding on to his neck, and this thing is across. As soon as he hits the other side, he comes out, and it's a base of a mountain. And she says he goes, no problem, bam. This dude is up that mountain, right? Again, carrying her.
Yodelay he who right up the mountain like that thing on Price is Right.
And so, I just happened to do a quick little, quick little Google search, man, about what was the average height of women back then, right? First Nation.
Yeah, we're talking about like 5'2".
Yeah. So this chick was. So I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go to the max ranges, right? She was 5. This would be considered big for them, right? I'm gonna say she was 5'4", 130 pounds, right? That's what I'm gonna say, right? She was probably more along between 5'1", 5'2", around 100, 115 pounds or something like that.
No, 5'4",
right.
130
right.
is safe. That's an athletic build, right?
Yeah, they're not eating sugar. I mean, this is protein, berries.
This is a woman who works.
Right, and she
walks a lot.
Yeah, a lot.
Yeah, she's in shape.
And this dude might as well have been carrying a chihuahua, right? And that's how easy it was, man. And if you've never had to carry any weight on your back, it's funny. Go put 100 pounds on your back and try to run 1 mile. 1 mile, right?
Yeah, I've done that before.
You'll get found out.
Fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So he shoots up this mountain, bro. And again, here's the second detail where I think there was many details in her story that made me think that she was telling the truth, right? But here's another one that makes me think that she was credible.
Sure.
She said that she could tell that the pitch, they weren't running over flat, uneven surfaces anymore. She could tell they were going up. And she said this very specific. I didn't get cold, but I could feel the air getting thinner, right? And I'm like, okay, that's the thing right there. Me again, there's a 7-foot wild man dragging me through the woods, right? And I'm going up a mountain, right? And I'm not going to think like, damn, the air's getting thinner. Now, she's not running hard. So she's not breathing hard. She could just say, I could feel that the air was getting thinner, right?
Yeah, it changes.
Yeah. And so I was like, okay, again, that detail just stuck in my head. So anyways, he gets up to this. What's it?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because I noticed the same thing. You remember our friend? I went on a really long hike with him one time out in the sticks. It was a horrible life decision I came to regret not soon after I made it. But we were hiking in the Alpine Desert in New Mexico. And I, when you said that, when she said, you repeated what she said about the air changing.
Yo.
As someone who's literally existed at sea level their entire life and doesn't really stray much from sea level, being in the Alpine Desert at about 8,000 or 9,000 feet and hiking with a pack on my back was a very different experience for me. And I had severely underestimated my ability to cope with it.
Didn't you dummies lock yourself under like some Native American sweat lodge for like 12 hours and drink like some kind of root or something?
I don't remember.
You guys watching?
It was a calamity, man.
These two white boys went on a walkabout one time somewhere out in New Mexico, and they did like a. I
got a history. Man, I got a long history of walkabout, and
they end up at some sweat lodge at the top of this mountain with some Navajo up there or whatever, and they think it'd be cool to take a full dose of whatever they drink, the Dreamscape, and they stay in the sweat lodge for like 12 more hours. I don't know how y'all got down that mountain, man. Anyways,
I found the path. Let me put it that way.
Looking for your spirit animal. Anyway,
right. No, I heard him in the forest.
Yeah, sure. I can imagine, right? Anyways, so she can tell she's going up a mountain, and all of a sudden she says he drops down on all fours, right? and she says that she can hear him, doing something with his hands. They go through then he kind of pushes her through for her it was a big hole, right? But for him it was probably just enough for him to get in and out, right? He puts her through a hole, and then he takes this stuff and cleans her eyes off, right? And when she opens up her eyes, she's in I don't want to embellish this, but she is in what's basically a yurt type situation inside of a mountain, just a circle complex with a fire
cave, like a nice domed cave.
Yeah, that's probably a better word for it. A nice domed cave with a fire pit in the middle. And here's another thing that she said that makes me think that she's believable, right? She said the entire cave floor was covered with animal skins. And she's quoted saying they preserve their skins better than we do, right? And I was thinking another weird thing to say, like, damn, nice carpet, basically, right? Like, so I just thought that was weird. Right?
Look, if you're getting kidnapped, you might as well notice the details, right?
Nice carpet, right? She gets a good look at the dude, right? She gets a good look at him, man. She hasn't seen him really up to this point. And she describes him as being, massive, in shape, 7 feet tall, right? And if you're 5'1", 5'2", that is even bigger, right? So, like, that's even bigger. Like, 7 feet tall is big. But if we saw a 7 foot tall guy today, we're not going to say, hey, look, he's a giant, right? But to her, he was a giant, right? Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's a matter of perspective. Have you ever stood next to a 7 foot tall man?
No, but like,
it sucks.
Would you say it was a giant, though?
I'm short. To me, he was.
right. Anyways, so okay, and then here's where it gets weird. Here's where it gets weirder, right? He doesn't live there alone, right? There's two other stuff in there, right? And when she came clear, she saw there was another man and another woman. She postulated that they were his mother and father because they appeared older to her, right? And here again, this is why, and this is another thing that stood out. The three of them started talking, right? Having a conversation. They had a language, and she says that the language was very similar to her language, right? And she, could start picking up a little bit of words that she was going through it. And again, she referred to the mother and father as a man and a woman, wild people. She never said Sasquatch. She never says that. Now she says he's hairy, right? He's hairy. Right. She doesn't say he's naked, and she doesn't say he's hairy. And she sees the mother and the father, and they're speaking to each other. They're speaking. And so I'm going to pause it right here. And people often say, if there were traces of these animals out there, we would find them. No, you wouldn't. And I'll tell you why you wouldn't. If they're living in caves and they have the ability to communicate verbally, and that they're not living, and she said the place was clean. It's not filthy. They're not living in their own shit, right?
It's not like it's a bunch of animals with bones on the floor in a pile, and they're just scavenging.
It's not what we
civilized.
Yes, it's not what we visualize, right? That's a level of intelligence. And I thought about this today. I did think about this today, right? Barring any type of unnatural death, right? For example, if I go into the woods and I starve to death, or I freeze to death, or I just don't know how to live in the woods, right? Or a grizzly takes me out, or a mountain lion pounces on me, right? Take that off the table. I could go in the woods and you could never find me. And that's not even a big, bold statement.
Absolutely.
That's not even.
No, it's not. It's not really a bold statement at all.
It's not. Most people with basic survival wood skills, you would not be able to find them, right? You wouldn't if they did not want to be found.
See, even people that don't have. Yeah. How many people get just lost in the woods just by accident?
Yeah.
If somebody's trying to get lost in the woods and they're doing it on purpose, they obviously know they can. And so they're going to be a little bit prepared for that. So you
would never find them, right? You would never find them. And so when people say, oh, this is the thing, man, that bothers me. And look, I love you guys, man. I do, man. But this is the thing that bothers me about you guys, man. I can give you 9 facts, and you was like, where's the body? Where's the body? There's no body, right? Okay, there's no body, right? Native American stories. There's over 100 words for Sasquatch. There's people have classified them. People have seen these all the time. Yeah, people fake this stuff. I don't know why you would fake it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I'd be scared to take a 306 round in my head or something like that. But yeah, people fake it, right? But there's this legend after story and it's not a gigantic.
It's not just isolated into one spot either. It is disparate cultures with very similar legends describing a very similar entity.
Yes.
For lack of a better word.
That's it.
That have never had contact and still have the same kind of
in legend. A mountain region you wouldn't last.
Fascinating.
Yeah, right? Exactly. In a mountain region you wouldn't last a day. You would be dead in a day. Half of the people, you would die crossing that river in 1871. You understand? Right?
Yeah. Dysentery is a thing.
Exactly. Yeah. You know how many people died building the Panama Canal?
Lots. Lots and lots.
They estimate 20,000. Do you know what they died from? Mosquitoes.
Malaria, I believe. Yeah.
So don't say dysentery. Malaria. So that's the thing.
It's bananas. Like, mosquitoes have killed more human beings than anything else in the entire.
For sure. And you know what? That freaks me out too, man. That bothers me right there. Because I consider myself, man, genetically kind of built to last, right? But I thought to myself, damn, if a mosquito took me out.
I can't argue with that.
Yeah, right?
I've seen you live on chicken fingers and French fries for years at a time and never gain a pound.
Yeah, right.
I look at a fucking bowl of ice cream and all of a sudden I'm tired.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I get it. So I can't disagree with that.
You want to hear a funny story, man? I'll tell you a funny story.
Absolutely.
It's relevant to this, right?
And now for Uncle Jay's Sea Stories.
Yeah. So this is pretty funny.
Sponsored by the Enigma File.
This was right when they started people started, coming out of the house after COVID, right? But so people were like, hey man, dude, I need to get out in the woods, man. I need to go for a hike, man. I need to go, right? So we got on and we were out somewhere in West Virginia, right? I'm like, yeah, man, let's do it, man. I have my camel pack on and I'm we're going up this trail. Now this trail was we were hand over fist, man. And it was kind of cool because we came across this beehive in the trees, man, that was the size of a cooler, right? It was massive, right? I was like, damn, man, you could hear it. I thought awesome. It was cool, right? So we're going up, man. We go up, bro. We go up maybe 6,000, 7,000 feet, right? And we get to the top, and we get to the top of this thing, and there's this overlook cliffs where you sit, man, and people are rock climbing. Everybody sits down, bro, and they're cracking open their water bottles, and they're eating their trail mix. Bro, I break out a Dr. Pepper and a bag of chili spice Doritos, right? And I had some Wawa beef jerky and cheese, right? And they're like,
yeah, man.
And they're like, are you eating that? I'm like, yeah, you're not.
Yeah. This is my snack, man.
It's my snack, man. So I'm throwing it down, man, and they're like I can't believe this. This guy made it up this hill. And I'm like, yo, man, this ain't whatever, man. So, anyways,
this is pure Tennessee, sir. I am fuel efficient.
Exactly right. That's how we throw down, man. Bro, you would have thought I had
I am a flex fuel automobile,
exactly
sir.
Right, man. Yeah, you would have thought I had a third eye in my head, man. But those people, they were looking at me like I was they all had their they all had their high-end had their high-end hiking gear on and shit, right? And I'm just
they're pulling open this I love them, and so I'm kind of joking, but I'm kind of not. The one or the simple bars, right? 4 ingredients, right? Those things are delicious, by the way, but they are they're a little bougie.
They're bougie. Oh yeah, I'm about to get my 13 grams of protein. I'm looking at my bag of spicy Doritos. I'm like, yeah, no protein.
Yeah. No protein in there, sir. Yeah, but the sausages make up for that, sir.
Exactly right.
Yeah, plenty of protein in them sausages and that cheese. It's good. It's delicious. preserves it. It'll take care of it.
So that's I'm always worried, man. Like, man, like I don't like if a mosquito kills me, man. Come up with a story, and even if it's
I wrote a book about it.
Yeah, I mean, like for my death, man. Like even though if it's go close casket and say a mountain lion got me or something, man. Don't say I went down.
I'll make sure you're gonna get a Viking funeral whether you like.
There you go. Exactly right. That's what I told him the other day.
I expect the same. Sir.
I got you, bro. I got you, son. I got you.
Good. You and my son have instruction. He knows what to do.
So, anyways,
make sure he hits it.
I was
kidding. He's a pretty good shot. I'm good.
Back to the story here, right? She's in the cave. Cave is clean. They have a language. Mm-hmm. She commented on the furs, saying the furs are better kept than theirs. I don't know, like, so anybody watching this channel, if you've ever had to skin a deer before and you want to keep the deer skin, right? Which is actually deer skin.
You gotta be careful. It's really nice. Too.
It's actually really nice, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my wife had a meltdown in the car the other day. That's a whole nother story about.
Did she have a Bambi moment?
Well, I was going to go kill a deer. I got my bow
That's what
back.
I'm trying to say. She had a Bambi moment.
Yeah, she got like.
She's like, don't go kill a deer.
She got really upset.
Like, look, man, I need a pair of leather boots, and that's some soft leather there, bro. It's nice.
She's like, she was like, what are we going to do?
I'll feed a family. See, here's the thing, though, and can we just take a little sidetrack for just 30 seconds about the hunting thing, right? Because it's something that's in my family, right? Like, my family's been in Pennsylvania a very long time. They have not been the fortunate type, right? Sometimes going out and shooting a deer is the difference between making it through the winter, feeling good about entering the winter in a good mood or not, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that venison will pay a lot. It will substitute for a lot of grocery bills, and especially round about now when that shit's real expensive, right?
Damn.
So hunting for people like my family is not a thing that we do because it's fun. We do it because we need it. So just keep that in mind.
Well, deer tastes good.
That being said, I'm off my soapbox.
Yeah, you feel better?
I really do. I feel cleaner.
Feel cleaner?
For sure. I do.
So she was like, what are you going to do with that deer? And I'm like, we're going to eat it. She's like, how am I going to cook it? I was like, what do you mean how are you going to cook it?
We're going to take it to the butcher, and he's going to cut it up into nice, sweet little cuts, and then you're going to put it in a frying pan, and we're going to eat it.
Yeah, so if you've never had venison before, it's actually really good.
It's delicious.
It's actually pretty healthy, too. And so are bison burgers. A bison cheeseburger.
They're good.
It's really good.
Here's what's so tragic about this, though, right now. COVID. A lot of the deer in Pennsylvania during COVID had COVID. Did you know that?
No, I didn't.
They tested the deer because a lot of people eat those deer.
Right.
And right now, there's a disease going through the whitetail population that's kind of rough. So hunters out there, please be careful.
Well, cook your meat at least. Yeah, cook it. Get
it checked because I don't even know the details there, but your butcher will know. So just be on the lookout.
So anyways. So back to the story. No deers were injured in the filming of this podcast. So
not lately anyway.
Not lately.
I'm not hungry.
So she was saying that the furs on the cave were amazing. The cave were better than her furs, were clean. And that also leads me to another thing. That's not easy to do. To skin and cure an animal hide. I've never skinned or cured a bear hide before. And it's going to be on the floor, so it's more than likely deer. There's a technique. There's a lot of
stuff you got to do to that to make it durable for the floor too.
Yeah. So that tells me that they had tools. They had to have some type of tools because you're not doing that with your teeth. You're not doing that with your fingers. No, it's not happening. So not with stone tools either. Yeah. Right. So you're talking about something specialized, right? Yeah. I don't. Yeah. Like maybe like
the first clue that these things were smart should have been that they put pitch over her eyes.
Ah, yeah, that's a good thing right there. Yeah, for sure.
Right? That's not something an animal does.
No. No. Yeah, that's a good point.
So that's where it started. That's your first clue. Yeah. Something grabs you and puts sticky pitch over your eyes on purpose.
Check out the big brain on Jay. You know what?
Hey man, look, detail is my thing, right?
Hey, so you ever seen the A-Team? We're the Sasquatch team. If you've been abducted by a Sasquatch and no one will believe your story,
Well,
and you need to find them, and if you can find Jay, we'll take your story.
good luck if you can find me.
Yeah, exactly. So,
I'll
anyways,
give you a clue. I'm in the bubble. I've been in there.
he's in a bubble. So there were skins on there. They had their own language. They had their own ability to move tools. Again, you just pointed out what I missed, that this was a premeditated snatch and grab. This wasn't something he lied in wait for her,
Right.
covered her up. He wanted her, right? Took
Prepped.
her. Right?
Prepped.
Yeah, exactly.
Had it ready to go.
They
That's
had
not
the-
easy to do, man.
Yeah.
Think about how much pine tar you have to gather up to cover somebody's eyes.
Yeah, true, right?
It's a good bit.
Yeah. And so he also said that he took her up there and that they were in there, right, with the father and mother. And this is another thing that she said. She said they fed her well. They fed her on deer, all kinds of other stuff, right? She was well fed. And she started to pick up their language. Now here's where it takes a not so pleasant event for this lady, right? And it didn't dawn on me at first. It never dawned on me, and then I was like, "Man, you're an idiot." Right? It didn't dawn on me, but then I realized that, like, damn, man, you're pretty stupid. Like, why would he take her?
I've been having that a lot lately.
Yeah, so I was like, so my mind was like, why would he just snatch a girl? And then I'm like, oh yeah, I realized why he snatched a girl. So he ended up having relations with Seraphine Long, and my guess was those relations were probably not where she had much of a choice. Yeah, she had not much of a choice.
We'll just give it the benefit of the doubt and say no.
Yeah, and so she gets pregnant, right? So she's with them for a year. She gets pregnant, and during the pregnancy, she gets and they never left her alone, right? They never left her alone. Somebody was always with her in the cropping or whatever they would do. Wherever she went, one of them was with her, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, during her pregnancy, she got sick. She got very ill, she said, right? And I guess that if you're a human growing a different species child inside of you,
Got a Nephilim in you, it's probably going to be uncomfortable.
that's probably might have something to do with it, right? And you probably got to think she's not getting any little to no vitamin D, and you know what I mean, and just constantly in there, just a bad situation.
Who knows, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Not only just the stress, right? The stress in and of itself is a huge thing for counter indication to miscarriage, right?
Yeah. So here this gets weird. She's picked up enough of their language, and it's their language is similar enough to her language that they were able to say, "I want to go home. I'm dying. I want to see my family before I die."
Mm-hmm.
They get mad at her, so she goes into this crying fit. They get mad at her that she wants to leave, right?
Mm-hmm.
So this Yeti goes outside, gets that tree gum again, comes back inside, and he blinds her again, picks her up, and he starts to carry her back. Like he literally is taking her back home, right?
He's like, all right.
Yeah.
Taking the taxi.
And so she says, again, she goes through the trip. They get down to the river, and she said she was so weak she couldn't hold on, so he held on to her, right? And this also makes me believe her story is because that there's a level of care that he seems to have for her, because it wasn't like he could not just go down and get another girl, right? It wasn't like that wasn't an option for this guy, right?
He picked one.
It
wasn't random.
It wasn't random, and then it wasn't like, okay, she's no use to me anymore. He could just let her go in the river. But she said he's holding her, swimming across the river, picks her up. Never once did she say that he manhandled her. Never once. I mean, even we all know how you
From
get.
what we know, he didn't like throw a tosser around or anything.
Exactly,
He was
right?
gentle.
Exactly. He takes her back, gets her close enough to the village, and lays her down, cleans off her eyes, and then this is another thing that makes me think that she was telling the truth, is because he waits for her to be able to be cognizant enough to see.
Mm-hmm.
She looks at him, and she said he looked sad. He was sad. He was sad he was leaving her. And then he saw her start moving back towards her village, and he left. And I was like, dang, man. So, okay. I didn't know what to make of that, man. I really didn't. I didn't know what. I don't know. I just didn't know, like, should I feel empathy for this dude or her, or I don't even know how to feel about this, man. Right? Like, you just stole a chick, bro. So that's right. And she's pregnant.
That is an exercise in subjective reality.
Yeah. So
right. Because everything that you've experienced up to the point at which you're standing right now, your perception of all of that dictates how your reality looks to you moving forward, right? And so if that was let's separate these into two things, right? So we've got Seraphina's perspective.
Yes.
Right, Seraphine's perspective. And then we've got, we'll just call him Charlie. Right. We got Charlie's perspective, and that's our wild man, our hairy guy. Right. I didn't call him hairy, and I missed an opportunity there, but whatever. We've got his perspective, right? And so that's the hardest one to try to step into. But let's buckle up and put our tinfoil hats on and try to step into the perspective, right? So we have, and we're going to go under the premise that this story, we're going to take 100% of what she says as a reality of what her experience was.
Exactly, right.
Right? So we're going to build our reality from her experience, which is we're going to accept it. And just for a minute, in order to walk through it properly, we have to accept that it's true. So you have to suspend all your disbelief, sort of like when you're watching an Avengers movie.
Yeah.
Right? So watch the Avengers movie in your head, but switch it to Charlie the Sasquatch. And this is his life, right? There are not many of him around. There's mom and dad. Who knows how many others there are around? Probably not many at this point, because if there's a lot of stories of indigenous people encountering Sasquatch,
right,
then there is probably a lot of stories. There was probably a lot of encounters, right? And so if they're encountering them a lot and then suddenly there aren't, you can kind of guess what happened probably, right? Some of these encountered ended badly for our Sasquatch friends, right? So there's probably not a lot of herd around for him to normally mate with. And so this survival instinct of wanting to procreate probably took over and is saying, I'm going to pick one because there's a lot of interesting close enoughs over there, right?
Right.
That I can kind of maybe do the thing, right? And you have probably we're approaching it from the perspective of these things are not culturally similar to us.
Not at all.
Right? Because we don't know what their culture is like, but they have one because they have knowledge transfer.
Yep.
Right? They are able to transfer knowledge from one to another, which requires language and tools and somewhat sophisticated, at least generally borderline civilized kind of ability to think, right? Plan ahead. You can't build a tool if you can't plan ahead.
Right.
The whole reason to have a tool is the planning ahead part. So you have to give them that. So you're approaching this from a very Stone Age, probably cultural perspective, where it was go grab one and now she's your wife.
Right. And so then I go on her side and see how she went from it. And it was probably a terrifying experience and all the stuff.
And so then there's probably spiritual aspects there that we're vastly ignorant of in her culture, right?
So then now I got to pull this full circle, and I got to come and say that Professor Augustus, spirit guide, Joseph Eagle Longbow. That would be my tribe name if I was First Nation. If I was there, that would be my name. I would self call myself Joseph Longbow, Eagle Longbow.
Jade talks too much.
Yeah. And I got to say, I got to make a command decision on this. Charlie, I got to kill you, man. Don't be touching, you can't be touching the women down here, bro. That's
the story, right?
Yeah, that's
how
bro.
The story has gone for a really, really long time.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Which is probably why there aren't many left.
Yeah, I'm sorry that there's not a lot of wild women or Sasquatch women over there, but You can't be snatching up our precious gifts down here when they're just out picking berries. I can't have it, son. Can't have it. So I'd have to kill. I'd have to track him down. I'd have to go down there. Hero's journey, Jay. Hero's journey. I got to track him down.
I mean, okay. So then you're stepping into the perspective of a Native American or a First Nations individual male,
right,
who has had this thing happen, right,
yeah,
and has to deal with it. Yeah. That's what's going to happen.
It's got to be dealt with, right?
There's going to be a posse, and they're going to take care of it.
Believe that you can't have that. Can't have this. Can't have it.
It's just how it was. It's just how it was. How it was back then. Like just
what do you call it? The Chicago way? Oh, somebody's got to answer.
That's different. That's different. Yeah, somebody's got to answer.
Somebody's got to answer for this.
I don't know. You could call that the Hanover way. I don't fucking know. But the Chicago way was they put one of yours in the hospital, you put two of theirs in the
exactly. Well, I was actually thinking that I got to go get now. I didn't want to be that bad guy on the podcast, and I'm thinking now I got to.
One of my favorite movies. Sean Connery is a badass, and it's The Untouchables, and it's like one of my favorites.
Because I was thinking I got to track you back. I got to track you back to the cave, and now I got to deal with your mom and dad too. I'm sorry, bro. Like I said, man, I got to put you out. But anyways,
hopefully they were gone, but who knows?
So Seraphine Long goes into the village. They see her. They're very happy. She's obviously pregnant. She's obviously dying, right? And they're like, "Oh my gosh!" Pull her into I don't know what their housing
triage, the equivalent.
They go in there, but she survives.
Okay.
And she gives birth, damn near 1 day later, right? And her brother, again, is not having it. He handles it, and that thing is now no longer in existence, right? So the brother did what needed to be done in his mind, and that was it. And that was pretty much her story.
They handled it the 1864 way.
Yeah, they did, man. They handled it very Game of Thrones like way that they handled it, right? And so, and I've watched several. She's obviously passed away. I've watched several sources of information on this, and the only thing negative she ever said was, in multiple accounts, is, "I hope I never see another one of those again." That's what she said, right? And I was like, man, so like they were just built different back then, man. These chicks are tough, bro. You know what I'm saying? They're tough.
Again, step into the perspective of a woman in 1864.
Yeah.
It ain't easy, bro.
Yeah.
It ain't easy to be a human.
Right.
Being a woman was probably pretty tough too, because giving birth in 1864 was a life-threatening experience, especially for one of the First Nations, I'm sure.
Oh, I mean, it has to be. So, and there was no hospitals. There was no, I don't even know, like, if they had.
No, and I mean, they got some pretty good care. They had some pretty good traditional medicine. But look, man, nothing stands up to some surgery with some clean antiseptic and some modern technology, right? Like,
I love antibiotics, man. That's my like without that.
Heck yeah, that's my jam, bro.
Yeah, but I had
medicine.
I had a conversation the other day, right? And it was one of these conversations that just kind of spiraled into something that I thought was strange. About how we're so different than we are from 100 years ago. For example, like 2024 to 1924. And I said to myself, you can't even imagine what 1824 would have been like, right? You can't even imagine it, right? We don't even think about it, right?
Yeah.
So I said, imagine you're a young man, you see a girl you like, right? And it was completely different back then. Well, I actually wish it would go back to this.
Here's the thing.
I'll tell you my thing.
We'll walk down that path in a minute.
I'm just talking about with the courting rituals. That was it, man. If a guy,
like a little bit of style and a little bit of class.
If a guy saw a girl that he liked, he would introduce himself. He would go on like chaperone visits, and they would talk, and there would be somebody there. They would get a little bit of private time there or whatever. But the person I was having this conversation, it's very formal. You
intellectual.
Yeah.
It was more of an intellectual meeting than it was a physical meeting.
Yeah, exactly. And so
that's a good thing. Iron that stuff out.
Yeah.
And you iron that stuff out for the other stuff out.
Yeah, and you would have to ask the father's permission to marry the daughter, and then that type of stuff would go on. And that's still big for me too, as well. Like My sons will not ask a woman to marry them until they speak to that woman's father. I don't care. And that's a rule in my house, and I've told that my boys are well versed in that, man. They're very well versed in that.
Can I ask a question though? Can I
Yeah.
ask a question though? What if her father's a piece of shit?
Well, if he's, I mean, if they,
It's a valid question, sir.
it is a valid question. But here's the answer on that. Here's the answer on that, right? Obviously, if this dude, you know, I don't want to stereotype here, but I grew up in the South, man. If I got to go knock on a trailer park door and step over like 20 empties to talk to the guy, then yeah, you don't need to ask that permission. You understand? Like if that type of situation. Right. And I can shit on trailer parks because I've been in enough of them, so I can. So yeah.
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 They're just gonna have to take it because
yeah,
that's the way it is.
Yeah, but like we're just talking about like if you know, as a respectful thing.
Poor doesn't mean
no,
bad.
Not at all. No, not at all.
But there are some poor people, and the reference that we have, because that's kind of the world that we grew up in, is poor white trash.
Whiskey tangos, man, white trash, right?
So when we think of knucklehead pieces of shit fathers, that's where our brain goes.
Yeah, goes right to it, right? And so
because that's more what we saw, right?
Yeah. But if like normal, we're just going to go on to the impression, normal relationship, normal stuff like that, whatever.
Absolutely. If her father's a good person,
absolutely,
he needs to go and talk to them and have a conversation.
You're going to ask him first, because the first, and this is important right here, and I think this has gotten lost. I'm getting on my shoebox here.
Let's step right up, because I'm game, sir.
The first man that a woman ever loves is her father, period. Right? And so the reason why the man walks the daughter down the aisle is he is taking the responsibility. You're now taking my daughter under your arm in my care. I expect you to take care of her. So before you marry a girl, you need to talk to her father, so her father can say, hey, look, I would be happy that you would, be my son-in-law, but please take care of my daughter, X, Y, and Z's, this, that, and the other, blah, 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 blah. Right? It's a conversation that needs to be had, right?
Not only that, but there's some accountability there that needs to be had, right?
Yeah, for sure.
You were so when you get married, you're linking your lives together, right? And that is an important thing, and I think people take it a little too lightly, and that's probably why we have a high percentage of divorce.
Yeah,
I think that I like some of the traditionalism, but I think that some of it too gets in the way, and adhering to it too closely just makes things difficult, right, to move forward. But my favorite thing to do is to look back, grab the good things about it, right? Take those out, make something new, and move forward with that, right? Of, hey, just respect, man. It's about finding that class and that respect for yourself and for other people again, right?
Yeah.
And we lost that, and we need to get it back, right? It's cool to be an asshole right now, and that just doesn't make any fucking sense.
Yeah, and so it goes the other way too. It's like, no, I think it's the way to be. And if you're the man that tries to come marry my daughter, we gonna talk.
We better ask. We better have a conversation, and that's not even about like any kind of patronizing thing about man.
No, I'm just gonna let you know my daughter is expensive. She's a brat.
Well, yeah, right.
She's high maintenance.
See, I didn't get to have it, but see, here's the thing, and this is why I agree with you, and I feel passionately about it, because I would have, right? I would have done so if I had been given the chance. Mm-hmm. And the thing that I've heard for a very long time from all of the people around me is that my father-in-law would have really liked me. But I really wish I had the chance to meet him, but I didn't. He passed away before I even met his daughter, right? And so knowing the impact that he had on her life and knowing kind of what that did and all the shenanigans that ensued afterwards, I feel like it's a really important thing, and it's part of our culture tradition that we should just hold on to, because it's a good piece.
I think so. So. Yeah, so myself.
But not for any misogynistic reason, like you're handing off the leash or some shit like that. It's more about care and kindness.
I don't care what you want to put a label on it. That's how we getting down around here.
But it's the intention in behind it, right? It's about the care and the kindness and not the control. And I think that people need to have a differentiation there, because I do think that there are some women out there that think it is about the control. And I don't think it is. Not for me, anyway.
For me,
For
I
me,
want to
it's
make sure
about
that they're not going to
partnership.
move back into the house. That's my thing. That's it.
You're out. It's done. You need to go.
Hit,
You can't come back in here. We're
hit
changing
the
the locks.
bricks. Hit the no
Your
take
room is
backs.
an
No.
office now.
I warned you. I told you
Ivan,
I told you she liked
dude, you
Gucci.
don't even know.
I told you she was a Gucci chick, and you didn't believe me. No, I don't want to care. No.
Man, I love my son very much. You know I do. I can't wait. I'm gonna have such a nice office. When that boy hits boot camp, I am gonna be
Boom.
living
Send his ass to the
large.
Naval
Bro.
Academy down there.
No. I asked him about that if he wanted to go to the Naval Academy. He's going to the Army, man. I keep trying to talk him out of it. He won't budge. I told him, I was like, hope you like digging holes. Good luck.
Yeah.
Hey, look, it's his decision, right? Self-determination for me is a big, huge thing.
You should let me talk
gotta
to
figure
him.
it out.
You should let me talk to him.
Yeah,
My
absolutely.
reasons for not going to the Army might be a little bit different than yours, man. So
Oh, dude, I don't even tell him to go in the Navy. I told him to go in the Air Force.
Go in the Air Force, kid. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Go in the Air Force.
Yeah.
Sir, if you were thinking about going in the military, go in the Air Force. He's like,
in the
nah,
Air
I
Force.
want to go in the Army. I was like, you're out of your mind.
Yeah, your mind, dude.
Good luck, sir.
Yep. Anyways, so when I was driving through, heard that story at night, I was like, man, that's
Wow, we're looping right back around, aren't we?
yeah,
Okay.
so I said
we're back to the woods of Next Virginia.
Yeah. So I said that's where I'd want to talk. I would want to do a podcast on this. But then so I did like a when people say, oh, there's countless documented cases, and I'm like, all right, so it should be easy to find. And guess what? They were easy to find. So check this out.
It is.
Yeah, so check this out. Another guy, J.W. Burns handled this story, but there was another guy that was doing research there. His name was Dr. Edward Fuchs. He did a lot of research on this, and at the time, these stories were so prevalent that they were daily occurrences in like local printings in like what they were called white towns back in the day, right? The natives were for the white towns. They didn't get the paper on the reservation, right? But they would report these things, right?
I got you. Yeah.
And they would say, be careful, the hairy man's back, or this was back. And like this would cause people to be like, hey.
On the lookout.
Yeah, on the lookout, right? And here was some common denominators that Dr. Fuchs was able to put together, right? One, they always snatched women, right?
Mm-hmm.
And number two, the women were all normally virgins. 9 out of 10 times, man, they were snatching virgins. And it led him to think that they were targeting them for reasons, right? And,
well, I mean,
and so it was going back and forth. And I thought to myself, you know what? If they were targeting virgins, is it because I wonder if it was that the lower risk of, like, if you took a Brave's wife, right? Would he come with his? I wonder if it lowered the risks. I don't know.
Yeah, they were going. It was almost like a coincidence because they were going after the unmarried.
Yeah, they were going after the unmarried girls of the tribe, right? And so I was like, all right, I didn't know. So I don't know.
Well, it really wasn't about being a virgin. It was more about just the demographic.
Yeah, exactly. So like, okay, that's the chief's wife. You take the chief's wives, man. You got the whole cruise coming after you. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I feel like the virginity part of it was a coincidence.
And the thing too is that the First Nation people, they knew where these things lived. They knew they didn't know where in the mountain, but they knew they were on that mountain, right? They knew the mountain, right? And I'll tell you why in a second.
You mean the one they told nobody to go up on?
Yeah, they referred. Well, this was different. They referred to this mountain. They wouldn't name it. The mountain with no name. It would be why it was where they were at, right?
Wow. Okay.
And also too, we said there were stories where they were taking and devouring babies, right? And hear this out. That's the same thing that happened at Mount Shasta that caused that Native American tribe to go to war and win, right?
Okay.
Was they had a treaty. Well, and so it led Dr. Fuchs going saying like, how could follow me on this trail, right? He says, how could
I just had to write that down because I really gotta
yeah,
I gotta dive into that one, man.
yeah. He says, how could something take a woman, be gentle enough with her, but still be capable of eating babies? And what they found is that these things, they actually developed their own. You had good ones and you had bad ones, right? They developed their own personalities, just like us, just like humans.
Okay,
right?
so there were tribes that were violent, and there were tribes that
Not
ate
even tribes.
babies.
He referred to them as individuals, and the tribe, this particular tribe, they befriended one of these things, and his name was Swaniti. And he had constant Swaniti. He had constant communication with the Spokane Indians, right? And they recognized him. They knew who he was. He interacted with the tribe, and he took a couple of their women. And either they willingly went with him or whatever, but he was on extremely friendly terms with the Spokane Indians, right? And they could speak to each other verbally because their languages were so, right?
Right. Well, they learned to communicate.
Yeah, they learned to communicate.
If they're going to be constantly, I mean, it sounds like there's dude, I don't even want to say what it sounds like. A trait of some sort happening.
Could have been.
There.
Who knows, right?
Like, who knows? I don't even want to jump to conclusions.
But he was considered to be a massive, 7 foot tall, muscular, gentle, right? And so, okay.
Uh-huh.
And then also they talked about how these things would occasionally come down from these reservations and invade the white territories. A woman named Emma Paul said that she almost got snatched up. And they had to go inside the house, and this thing circled their perimeter. But of course, down there, they were all musketed up and whatever the firearms were. And they were able to kind of, run it off, for lack of a better word, right? And then also, Dr. Fuchs made friends with one of the high-ranking Spokane Indians, and he said that the Indians knew everything about these wild men. He said the reason why you don't see them all the time is that they hibernate in the winter like bears. He says they build their conclaves into the side of the mountains so well that when they put a boulder over it, you can't see it, right? And he also said that every single year on this mountain, they hold a council or a conference where they all go. And at the bottom of the mountain, the younger Sasquatches set up a perimeter so no one is allowed to go up during that conference, right? And I thought to myself,
that sounds familiar.
Don't it, right?
Uh-huh.
Don't it? Just like in the Book of Giants they were doing, man. They would come together.
They would have a conclave.
Exactly right. That right there leads me to another level of intelligence. They had a hierarchy. There were rules. Those rules might not be what we would agree to, but there was rules that they must have had that you had to meet and talk to. It wasn't every man for himself. It wasn't snatch and grab, go kill.
I mean, the whole thing speaks of a culture, right?
Perfect word for it.
Language.
Perfect word.
Tools.
Right.
It's a culture, and I don't know about you, but my dog hasn't had a conclave with any other dogs.
No, for sure. Right?
Not planned one either.
And so then it goes
I've been around a lot.
Yeah, and then it goes on to say that there was this other Indian. His name was Chehalis Philip, and he was fishing. And he said he was fishing in one of these streams over there. We had to have a canoe. He said all of a sudden a boulder came flying at him, landed right beside the canoe. He looked up, and this wild man was shooting down.
Yeah, he was tossing rocks.
Yeah, he was coming down. He said he thought it was going to dive into the water, so he paddled away real quick.
Rolled.
Again, so you have Swaniti being nice to him, working with him, and you got the other ones chucking rocks on him, right?
Well, I mean, it's just like any other individual, right?
Yeah. And and then so Dr. Fuchs had got that from a high-ranking Spokane Indian, but then he also got it because he was a scientist, researcher, I guess, for the lack of a better word at the time, he went and got a second source. He made friends with an Indian named Henry Napoleon. And Henry Napoleon told him from a different tribe, without knowing that Dr. Fuchs had been talking to this other guy in the Spokane tribe, the same thing, that they develop their own temperaments and personalities, just like us. They live in caves. They hibernate during the winter, right? And he said also, too, the caves are so well put together that when they put the boulder in front of these caves, you can't see it, right? And he says they're over 7 feet tall. They can speak. They have their own conversations, right? And he said that he actually took him to one of these caves in the spring where the door was open, right, of the cave. They could see that it was empty. Dr. Fuchs was like, I want to go see it. He's like, no.
Yeah.
We're not going in there. They're not messing with us. We're not messing with him.
I'm messing with them.
So they go back. So Dr. Fuchs goes onto this thing thinking,
hey,
like,
can I go in your friend's house? This guy, we found a house. Can I just walk in the house? I just want to take a look around.
So Dr. Fuchs
totally.
he can't, right? He can't let it go, right? He can't let this thing go, right? So he decides, I'm going to go back, right? Goes back. The rock has been put back in place. He can't find it. He knows that they're in the area. Can't find it. Confirming exactly what they say. When they put that boulder in front of it, right?
You cannot see it, right?
Cannot see it, right? And if they're hibernate during the winter,
that speaks of camouflage and knowing that they're surrounded by things that are possibly hostile.
Exactly. And then here's another one, right? Here's the last story that I stopped looking. This was the 10th one I came across with barely not even looking, right? There was a story of this Indian, First Nation, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you keep slipping, man.
I know, man. His name was Charlie Victor.
I'll try to help you.
Right. His name was Charlie Victor, right?
Mm-hmm.
And Charlie Victor was out one day, and he was hunting. And he was hunting with dogs. And so if you never hunted with dogs before, dogs will flush out prey and have the prey come back to you, and you just shoot the prey, right? So his dogs came across something, and instead of it flushing it out, it went into a hole. So Charlie was like, okay, whatever's in that hole, that's my dinner. I'm going to happen. Sends his dogs in. Hears this big ruckus, this crazy scream. He's like, whoa, what's that? All of a sudden, something shoots out of the hole. He pops a shot off real quick, hits it in the thigh, it falls down. It's a butt-naked 12-year-old white boy, right? He's laying on the ground. Yeah, I know, right?
That was unexpected.
Exactly, right? So he pegs it dead in the thigh, right? And the boy is in agony. And all of a sudden he's coming up and he's taken back for a minute. He's like, okay, first of all, I just shot a boy, but then he's a white boy.
I shot a kid that I thought was a
kid.
Right, it's a white boy. I just
shot a naked white boy, right? What are you doing in this hole?
This does not look good for me.
So and all of a sudden he says this kid starts calling out like in the traditional thing right there.
Yeah. He's making calls.
And then Charlie's trying to calm him down, but Charlie's all of a sudden noticing that something's hooting back, right? Mm-hmm. And Charlie's like, whoa. So he's like, okay. Kid keeps hooting. Something's hooting, closer. Charlie's panicking a little bit, and all of a sudden, man, bam, boom, out of the brush, man, a 7-foot-tall female wild woman
Mama comes out and whoops his
breaks
ass,
out.
Is what you're
Charlie
saying.
said that she was so well built and so muscular that she could have ripped him in half. That's what she said, right? And she was pissed, right? She runs up to the boy. They start talking in their language, and Charlie understands their language. And he starts talking in his language, and the girl turns around and says to him, "You just shot my friend," right? And he's like, "Wait." He tells her the story. He's like, "I was hunting."
Not on purpose, though.
Yeah, he's like, "I was hunting. Thought he was whatever. I thought he was a bear. My dogs ran him into a hole. He came out." And he was like, I'm going to die here, right? Like there's that, like, and so
I got no shot.
The woman had and another thing too that makes me think that he's telling the truth is those little idiotic details that people grab on. He said she had hair down to her knees. Okay.
That's interesting. What?
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, it's the outliers. They're always going to stick in your head, and there's a reason for it. There's an explanation for it too, like some kind of psychological explanation.
So she had hair down to her knees, right? And she was going to rip him in half. So what does she do? She picks up the boy and just walks away.
And rolls.
Walks away. Walks into the woods, right? This story has receipts, kid. And I'll tell you why. So the next question I thought to myself would be, how does a white boy end up in the forest, butt naked, 12 years old,
in a
hole near an Indian reservation where, how are you not dead? You understand? Turns out that there was a plane crash 10, 11 years ago of a French family in a small Cessna plane that crashed in that area. They found the pilot, the mother and dad, never found the kid. So,
well, I mean, they just did it, but
yeah. So evidently, it leads to the whole how they can choose to be either good or evil.
It just speaks to a higher function there,
right? So this wild woman or her people found it. I don't know why Tarzan keeps popping into my head, man, but like found it
because it's kind of the same deal.
Was raising him up, man, and
it's essentially the same story.
Keeping an eye on him, right?
Tarzan is the same story.
Yeah,
I mean, think about it, right? Yeah. The apes and the animals of the forest raising a child.
Yep.
Right.
And so it also this also leads me to something too, man. It also leads me something too about that I actually think not only do I believe these stories, I really do. Stories over time can get embellished, right? But I actually believe the core of these stories, and I'm going to tell you. And I also there's something about these wild men or wild women that another reason why I think that they're real, and that I believe them is because that's the third or fourth time where they demonstrate emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you, and I'll also tell you, if nature
not only just emotion but empathy.
Empathy, that's a great word for it.
That's a hard one.
And there's no feelings in the wild. And I'll tell you a story right now. A wolf will eat your face and not get happy or sad, right? Period.
It ain't even about the wild. It's about being the wild animal.
Yeah.
A woman will die in her apartment. A cat's will eat her face.
Yeah, exactly. I mean? That's why dogs are better. Dog will never eat you. But anyway, so look. I had a squirrel.
Yes, hungry enough, you will.
I had a squirrel, right? Last summer.
You had a squirrel?
I had a squirrel. That's important, right? So I would sit it on my deck in evenings, and there was this squirrel, right? And he had this big tree that I could pretty close. And this squirrel, man, I used to enjoy watching this squirrel play. And I would feed it, man. I would throw it some peanuts or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
and I watched him get big and fat, and he was turning into the alpha squirrel, right? And then literally towards the end of last summer, I was sitting out there on the deck, and I was like, man, I called him Leroy. I don't know why I called him Leroy, but I just called him Leroy, right?
Because that's his name, man.
Yeah, so I was like, go ahead, Leroy. And he was on a branch, and I saw him there, and damn it, a hawk swooped down, scooped him up. First time I've ever seen a hawk spirit.
Bye, Leroy.
And took Leroy off, and I was like, you son of a bitch, you just killed my squirrel, right? I thought to myself, like it emotionally affected me, right? That this wild squirrel got smoked. And that's why I think these things are different, because a pack of wolves rolling up on a newborn, that is lunch. You understand? Another thing too that's in the wild, and it's even in humanity, back in the day, there was a reason. Like, you had a shelf life in tribes. When you got to the point where you had to be constantly carried or fed or whatever,
it didn't happen.
The Vikings used to the Viking elders would jump off cliffs. Other
There's
tribes,
a lot of the Inuit tradition,
yeah,
right?
club
They
you
go out
with,
on the ice. They go out on the iceberg and just kind of float away.
float away, man.
That's and I don't know how accurate that is, but it's in my head, so who knows, right?
But these animals, they took a burden on, right?
Right.
Took a
It's
burden.
it definitely speaks to a higher kind of functioning, right?
Right. And 12 years later, she's still caring for it.
Well, I mean, at that point, it's hers, right?
Yeah.
And then that instinct kicks in of nurturing the young, whether
Yeah.
it be yours or not. I mean, there's a lot of examples of that everywhere in nature.
Yeah.
Right? Mockingbirds do it constantly.
But yeah.
They swap eggs.
Look at that.
Lots of stuff, dude. I'm familiar. Okay, maybe not from the Bigfoot perspective, but from just being a researcher and constantly sifting through information, right? The whole Indigenous women's disappearance thing is kind of it's fascinating in a way that is also upsetting because it's something that's been going on for a long time and not enough attention has been paid to it, right?
No, it's still going on too. I watched a Netflix movie I thought was pretty cool. I don't know what it was. I can't remember the name. It was the guy that played Hawkeye. He was like a tracker.
Oh, Jeremy Renner.
Jeremy Renner. Did you see it on Netflix?
And
at the very end of the,
I don't sit and watch TV very often. It's got to be like
it's movie night, man. I have to.
No. Yeah, but when we do movie night around here, it's not
Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory.
Indigenous women. Yeah, no, it's not.
Well, no, so it's actually a pretty good story, man. He's a tracker.
I'll try to. I'm going to grab it by myself. I'll grab it and watch it by myself.
Yeah,
the audience will not enjoy it.
He's a tracker out in Wyoming, and like something happens to this Indigenous girl. FBI comes in and they solve the case. But at the very end of it, something happened that kind of pissed me off. I'm actually a big guy on like justice, right? Like right or wrong, even if it doesn't even have anything to like do with me, right?
Because been hemmed up in situations where you were just fine and you got blamed for shit. That's
exactly right. And you were there, and I took it like a champ, kept my mouth shut, right? So,
goddamn right.
It said at the very end of the movie, it said that the only statistics that's not tracked by the FBI is Indigenous women disappearing. And I'm like, why not? Why right. Are they not? Why?
That doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't make any sense whatsoever, right? And so that just pissed me off. I'm like, go kill that dude.
Who made that oversight? Why is that even a thing? Who didn't notice that was happening for?
So evidently how this works, and if you're any Native Americans in America, you correct me all you want in the comments, but from what I took away from it, reservations have their own laws, their own police, their own patrol force, right?
Yeah, it's considered considered like a sovereign territory.
And so if any type of outside investigation is done on a reservation, it's
with the permission of the reservation.
It's by the FBI, right? The FBI has to come on and do it. And I'm thinking to myself, why are they not keeping that? Why are they keeping that? And first of all, my thing is that
like the ones that are supposed to be the kind of the helpful law enforcement there, right?
Yeah. Sure.
Like if they're specifically the ones who are in charge,
I got to tell you something too, man.
That would be a statistic that they would want to track for sure.
I got to tell you something too, man. Today I was doing a little bit of like meditating and by myself all day. Rage Against the Machine lyrics are starting to hit a lot harder for me, man. Right now, I don't know what it is, man. Like,
see, and that's what's interesting about it, right? Like. There's a lot there. There's a lot there to unpack. And yeah, I don't know. It does. You today, listen to it every time, it makes a little bit more sense.
So today I was doing a little bit of work, and I didn't even have it on, man. It just popped in my head, man. There was that verse like, land of the free, whoever told you that is your enemy. Mm-hmm. Something must be done about bullets, badges, and a gun.
You don't even want to get into this with me, bro.
I don't know why, man. All of a sudden, man, like I'm turning into the lead singer of like Rage Against the Machine. I don't know why that popped in, but when I saw that show, I thought to myself 2 questions, actually 3 or 4 questions. Number 1 was like, why not? Right? And number 2 is I'm like, how many of these women are getting snatched up that you got to make a movie about it, and no one's
For
talking
people
about
to
it.
fucking sit up and take notice, right?
And how are they
It's
getting
got to
away
be
with
a
this
Netflix
shit, right?
special before anybody cares. Yeah, that's bullshit, right?
Yeah.
Especially as someone who kind of sits in the back and whose job it is to kind of watch these statistics and make sure they don't get out of control.
Nah. And you know what we
Right?
need? You know what we need? And this is where people get mad at me, but you know what we need to see happen? You want to know when you will see when it happen?
A lot of stuff I'd like
Y'all
to see
need to go
happen
back to
before
painting your
it's starting to
faces,
climb.
man. Y'all need to bring the Braves back out. Get on them horses,
Seriously.
right? And then
Seriously.
do them old school back in the. And I said it
Pick
to
up
the.
some spirits and just
Yeah.
figuratively speaking, right?
Yeah. No, you're on the res now. Yeah, you come on the res acting up. Yo, handle them, right? Leave them hanging,
Yeah,
bro.
for
Old
sure.
school spaghetti western style. And you know what else we need to see rise up, bro? We need the samurais to rise up. We need Japan to rise back up, dude. And that'll solve a lot of
So
problems over there in the Pacific.
here's the deal, right? It's literally time for everybody to stand up.
Yeah.
Right? Because there are so many things happening. Man, there's a place, right, that I call the cloud of unreality, right? And this is a place where a lot of people of privilege exist. They think that their life follows down, right? So,
Yeah.
and I've witnessed it quite a bit, right? This kind of and this we're talking about soapboxes. Just buckle up because I'm going to stand on mine for a minute. Because this is something that really bothers me, right? I've gotten criticized through the course of my life for being a white man, right?
Whitey.
Being a person of privilege.
White trash.
And I accept that because it's true, right? I didn't choose it though, right? Nobody chooses the fucking sleeve that they pop into when they get into the simulation, or however you want to look at this, right? Nobody chooses that shit. Nobody chooses what side of the line you're on some weird fucking imaginary borderline that was made because of arbitrary wars that happened 150 years ago, right? Nobody picks that shit. If you get born into a life of privilege, it would be really cool to look out for some other people now and again. If you've got more than you need, maybe slop some over the bowl, right? Kind of what we should do with just in the general sense, right? Part of being a good human. But see, here's where we're at right now. We got people like, and I'm not going to name names because I don't know his name, but some knucklehead from the Kansas Shitty Chiefs who stood up and did a commencement speech where he said that basically that a woman's calling was in the home and I'm going to murder that. But he went full trad wife, essentially, up on stage at the commencement address of some college.
I like him already.
A bunch of very smart, very educated women in the audience who are being told to go home and raise babies.
I like him already.
And this guy was able to say this in front of a bunch of people because he's a football player who's taken way too many blows to the head, and he just happens to be on the team that won this year. That's fucking ridiculous, man. You talk about fiduciary.
I go the opposite direction, man. I go the opposite direction.
I understand, but I'm coming to a point, right? And you may agree with what he said, but the way he did it was ham-fisted and shitty.
That's how I get down.
Right? Okay, but I don't.
Here's what you need to do.
And there's a reason, though. There's a reason behind all this bullshit that I'm spewing out. There's a big divide that's growing between the people of privilege and money and people like us without privilege or money, right? I got a little bit, but not nearly where I would be in the cloud of unreality, right? These people who exist in this world where they're just cushioned from the whole rest of it. The problem is that divide is growing and growing and growing. And there are people who are actively exploiting it to make it grow further. White people are not the enemy. Black people are not the enemy. Chinese people are not the enemy.
Satan is your enemy.
The enemy is greed. And we all need to knock it the fuck off.
Well, so I'm going to fix your problem. I'm going to fix
I'm going to fix it.
So I agree. It's unfair to tell these women to get in the kitchen without giving them an education. These colleges need to have how to make your husband a sandwich elective, how to cook. Get back to the roots, man.
You're gonna do it. You're gonna go this way, right?
I'm going
We're
that
gonna
way.
do this.
I'm going in it, man.
I'm fine.
I'm going in it. You know what? You're
Again,
right.
like I said, self-determination. I believe anyone shall be allowed to hold what they
You're right.
think to be true close to the chest.
We need how to make your husband a sandwich
when it
class in
intersects
college.
when it intersects with other people's self-determination, that's when I start to have a conflict, right?
But you know what else just dawned on my head, man, too? And I was talking
What's
to
that?
this back in the day. This has nothing to do with what you were just talking about. But like you know who else is always going hard on our chicks, man? I was talking this with the girls from the Cryptid Women's Society, Juliet and Lisa.
What's that?
The aliens are snatching up our chicks too.
I told you why that is. I told you why I think all of this is happening.
So these guys,
they're checking to see if there's any Nephilim left, and there is. So they're just not going to come back until the blood's clean.
Man,
they're waiting for the petri dish to. They're waiting for the petri dish to burn itself out.
That's what we need to do, man. We need a zero tolerance for Sasquatches, Yetis, Dogmens, aliens, Pudge Wudgies snatching up our children.
You'll get okay. So here's what'll happen. The average human population is about 2%. I don't even know if it's 2%. It might even be like lower than that at this point. Neanderthal, right? Those that have Neanderthal in them, it's a smidge, right? It's like 1-2% or something like that, right? It's still there. Denisovin is still there. It's lurking. I don't know that it's ever going to go away.
What is the current?
Why else would? Okay, so I love going under the premise and being flexible and saying all of these stories are true.
Yeah,
right? It's fine. I can do that. I can do the mental gymnastics there. Right? It's not hard. If all these stories are true and you accept them in their entirety, what is the most logical explanation for all of these things? What overlaps the best, right? Like that's where I go to try to analyze stuff like this. I look at the Venn diagram, right? The circles that overlap.
Mm-hmm.
All of the stories have a commonality, and those are the things you grab a hold of. And all of the abduction stories have a commonality with aliens of sampling of some sort. Just take it all the way down to its base level. They're sampling.
Yeah,
every time.
They are. They're doing weird stuff.
Cows, the people, right? They're all. It's a sample. So what are they looking for if they're taking tissue samples and they're looking at the blood and they're looking at the especially the reproductive parts to see what's still lurking? I don't know. That's kind of what I think, right?
Yeah,
if you take all of these stories, right, and you walk them down the path, the commonality says, like we've said before, we went through the Book of Giants and Enoch and all of the other things, the Anunnaki, right? And you take those legends and you kind of like make circles out of them and overlap the circles and see where the darkest line is, right?
Yeah.
And that is, we're a giant genetic experiment. Somebody sneezed in the petri dish and they're waiting to see what happens next.
Yeah, no, same thing. Like the Kelly Cahill story out of Australia, Betty and Barney Hill out of Buffalo, New York. And there's countless ones where they come down. Those are the two. Those are just the two like cornerstones.
Just go down the line and draw. Just go down the line, overlap them all, right? See where the outliers are, because the outliers will lead you home.
Yeah. And we got to do a better job, fellas, protecting our ladies. Any Sasquatches show up?
I need a gun like gun my friend had, that 357 Dirty Harry freaking special that was like a hand cannon, the thing in like Pulp Fiction or whatever.
So
one of them.
There in that movie I was telling you about, he has a gun that I'm actually going to buy. It was a rifle, and it is called a. I made a note of what it was called, and I can't find what it is, man. But it was pretty good. It was it shot around. I never heard of it before. They called it like a 4.55. Like it was like that long, and it was a
like mini mortar shells in it.
Yeah, man. But it was a short barreled rifle that he Marriott or something like that. I can't remember. It'll come to me later or whatever. But it was pretty cool. All right, man. Well, if you stuck around this long, losers, you're our type of losers, nerds. So do us a favor. pound that
And we
subscribe
love
button.
you dearly.
Give us a thumbs up. Call Jay a
Hit the bell for
chauvinist for saying that women
Absolutely.
should not be
Chauvinist.
allowed back in the kitchen. How dare you tell a woman she can't go in the kitchen,
Oh,
Jay?
well, no, look, here. Self-determination first. If you want to go raise kids, and that's what you want to do it.
I've seen some pretty
For
funny
real.
memes.
It's an important fucking job.
Yeah, having babies. And that's all we got. So,
That's all for us.
you got
Good
any
night.
questions in the comments? Hit it below, whatever. Hit the bell.
Yeah, and definitely comment because I'd love to talk to some of you.
All right. We out.
Subscribe now and turn on the notifications to join us on this extraordinary journey into the unknown.